Here's Ben cutting free in front of Becky. He scores! Full count pitch from Ramirez. This one is swung on and lifted to deep left center field. Jones is chasing and that is gone.
To 74, and how about Edwards' nifty Euro step to the European?
Stopped in the backfield, breaks away, wiggles around Brandon Graham. Luka! Goes in! How did he do it? How did he do it? That is Luka magic!
¿Qué pasó, mi gente? It's MarkTip25 otra vez. You all have heard the news. James Harden is going to the Nets. Man, so much for parity, right? And you know, this all could have happened a lot sooner. But it is what it is. Let's kind of just look into how everything kind of panned out. Like, what exactly happened with that whole situation. Of course, we have Harden to the Nets. But then we have 3 other teams in the mix. Right? So he's going from the Rockets to the Nets, but we also have the Pacers and the Cavaliers in this whole situation. So, as far as the Pacers were actually kind of an extension of this whole thing. They were added kind of later to the mix. Karis LeVert got sent to them. He was originally going to Houston, but then he got sent to the Pacers for Victor Oladipo, which is one of the weirder parts of this trade, which I'll get to in a little while. And then the Cavaliers end, they got Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. And then as far as the Rockets, what they receive in all of this, they receive Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs, I apologize if I mispronounced that, Victor Oladipo from the Pacers, and a bunch of picks. Some of them are pick swaps, but even then, picks are picks. And then you get, like, as far as the 3 major picks, they're the first round draft picks in 2022, 2024, and 2026. And they also get Cleveland's 2022 first round pick via the Milwaukee Bucks. So there's just a lot going on. And then, of course, with the Nets, they kind of gave up some sense of depth, but I don't think it's that horrible. They still have some decent pieces with Joe Harris, and I think Shamet is still there. But yeah, you have now Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. It's pretty freaking ridiculous, I'm going to tell you that much. I mean, with Kevin Durant, you have a pretty much a 30-point scorer, so he is 29.9 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 27.37 PER. And then you have Kyrie, who is 27.1, and granted, with Kyrie, it's a little bit less. I mean, it's kind of a smaller sample size, but even within that small sample size, he's putting up really good numbers. 27.1 points, 5.3 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 27.8 PER. That is crazy. And then, of course, you have James Harden, who adds an additional 24.8 points per game, which will probably get a little higher once he gets into the swing of things. 5.1 rebounds, 10.4 assists, and 23.72 PER. This is ridiculous. This is pretty much a super team now. Again, like I said, all that happened with the start of the season, thinking we were going to have parity throughout the entire season, is out the door. It's gone. There's so much for it, right? So now we have these 3. But here's the thing, though. The thing that's a little bit up in the air right now is Kyrie. Because a lot of people were saying that he was probably going to be within that trade, but he didn't end up being there. So it kind of makes people wonder what is going to happen with him. It kind of gave me a little pause because it's like, because Kyrie has his own little situation right now. His sister's birthday party with all his family, but they weren't wearing masks and it was a big gathering. So he's kind of under scrutiny right now, and the video is being reviewed, and possibly they might, fine him $460,000 per game, which is pretty ridiculous. I don't think they even fined James Harden that much when he was actually at a strip club, even though he claims it wasn't. But James, let's not play stupid. We know you were at a strip club. So yeah, it's crazy how the two players that seem to be having the most problems are now on the same team. But who knows what's going to happen with Kyrie? Are they going to play this out? Or are they going to end up trading him? Because it seems very strange that, that things are a little quiet on that aspect of all of this. But here's the deal. If they don't trade him, you're getting a highly, as I stated, with all the stats I just stated, a highly powerful offense. And granted, you could say, oh, well, that's like the Warriors. And it's comparable to the sense that the Warriors they had such a high-powered offense that it doesn't matter what you did defensively, they were still going to burn you. And, their offense was pretty much their defense. It's going to be similar here. I don't think James Harden or Kyrie Irving are as good of shooters as Klay and Steph Curry, but they still are very good shooters. So it's going to be a very crazy, crazy lineup if they stick together. And, of course, with Kevin Durant, I mean, that guy is putting in work. He's back. He's definitely back, especially after what happened to him with that Achilles injury in 2019, and now he's killing it. I mean, he's struggling right now because it's been mainly him, and Kyrie's been kind of aloof, that's the best phrase I could really come up with in that one. But yeah, the Nets are currently 6-6, and I think adding Harden is going to at least give him a leg up and, a revamp to kind of get him back on the right track. And with this team, the way it's looking, they pretty much are on lock heading towards the NBA Finals. If all is said and done, and if everything goes correctly and they play their cards right, I don't see it any other way. The Bucks have been struggling mightily this season. The Sixers, they've been playing pretty well, but Simmons has kind of struggled a bit. And in all honesty, I think the Sixers kind of missed out on a golden opportunity. And see, these are where some other narratives come in. The Sixers pretty much missed out on a golden opportunity to get James Harden because, again, the whole big deal against Ben Simmons is his shooting, right? He's not a very good shooter. He is very great in all other aspects. He's a good finisher at the rim. He is a great passer, great rebounder, shot blocker, because he, for his size as a guard, he's huge. But overall, who knows what's going to happen. I think part of the reason why the Sixers didn't pull the trigger on this is because Daryl Morey is now the GM, and it's, and I hate to say this, and again, because I could be wrong, this is just speculation, but I have a feeling that the reason why Daryl Morey did not pull the trigger on this is because he was already with the Rockets, and he already knew how James Harden was, and he was not going to be swept under that whole situation again, because they gave him a lot. And that's another huge narrative. Because recently Harden, before this all happened, came out and said, I gave everything I got, and, it's just, this isn't going to work. I mean, there's two sides of it. Yes, that is true. He did play for this organization for nearly a decade. But here's the problem, though. This season, he kind of screwed around, and then in some games, he wasn't even playing up to par the way he needed to be. So did he really give it his all, at least give it a try? I don't know. You can be the judge of that. I don't think he gave it enough time to really get an idea, because, I mean, John Wall's starting to come back to his own. But I don't know. That's just what I think. On the other hand, the Rockets, like I said, Daryl Morey did a lot for James Harden. He gave him a lot of pieces, Chris Paul. Then he traded Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook, thinking he could get some semblance of, unity and cooperation because they've played on the same team before. And it didn't pan out. Daryl Morey did a lot to try and put him in a position to win, and it didn't end up happening. So, I don't know. I guess both sides of the organization itself is to blame, and Harden is to blame for just their overall problems. I mean, and that's really how it is. That's just the situation. That's the truth of it. And that's sad, because the Rockets seemed like they were really poised to take that next step. And granted, you all can say, well, if Chris Paul didn't get injured, maybe they do take that next step. I mean, at this point, it's neither here nor there. You have that situation, but let's kind of look at the other aspects of the trade, right? You have Karis LeVert going to the Pacers, and Victor Oladipo going to the Rockets. That, again, is a very strange move, because, again, I don't know what the Pacers were thinking. I mean, maybe they're moving on from Victor Oladipo because Domantas Sabonis is starting to come to his own. But at the same time, I would have at least given this team a full year to figure it out. Maybe it's one of those things that, well, if we kept him, he probably would have walked in free agency anyway, and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, who knows? Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But you never know. And now they won't ever know because they've traded him away. And Victor was starting to come back to what he was starting to be when he was first with the Pacers. But at this point, it is what it is, and now Caris LeVert is there. Caris LeVert is not a bad player. He was doing pretty well with the Nets. But he's definitely not as refined as Victor Oladipo. So we'll see what he does with the Pacers, and, you know, I wish him the best. And then, as far as the Cleveland Cavaliers, they sent Dante Exum, and Karooks, I think, also got sent there. So that's going to be strange to see what they do on the Rockets. I mean, I don't think they're going to get that much minutes. And as far as, you know, Victor Oladipo, he's going to be solid, but whether that takes them to, you know, a deeper spot within the playoffs, I don't know. I mean, I think this Rockets team is not going to be what it once was. They're still, I think, going to at least make the playoffs. At best, 7th or 8th seed, if at worst, 2 or 3 spaces out of the playoffs. I don't know. I have faith Victor Oladipo is at least going to keep them competitive still. But and then again, there's a lot of Rockets fans that don't like the return on this. But we'll see what it does. We'll see what pans out from all of that. So then the Cavaliers get Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. And that's going to be interesting because what do you do with that? You're going to trade Andre Drummond? You're going to trade Kevin Love? What's happening there? But yeah, that's just the weird situation for the Cavaliers. We never know what the hell they're doing. But as far as the rest of the league, what does this mean for the rest of the league? As I stated earlier, if things pan out right and Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and James Harden just mesh together well, I could foresee the Nets winning a finals. There's no doubt in my mind at that point that they would win a finals. That there's so much talent on that team to not win a finals. And granted, it would be probably against the Lakers. The Lakers have been the stronger team within the West. I mean, there's no slowing down LeBron right now. But we'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. But for the rest of the league, I think it creates a huge shift within power into the East. Granted, it is a little top heavy, but it's still in the East. So now you have a lot of these players now within the East, and it kind of creates a better power struggle now. There's not just, it's not all just the West is tough and the East sucks. I mean, the East has been getting stronger over the years, but now we really legitimately see the East being very strong now. And it gets to the point where, well, now, do you even consider getting rid of the conferences? At this point, I don't think you do. I think things are good the way they are right now, especially considering the power has shifted. So, I think you keep the conferences the way they are. And then, as far as other teams within the league, now the Bucks have already been starting to struggle. I think now they're gonna at this point, I think it's quite obvious. I don't think the Bucks are making the finals with this move. Again, if Kyrie plays his cards right, and if they don't end up trading him, because that's another big thing. I don't know what's going to happen with Kyrie, but that's the main factor, Kyrie. But overall, the Bucks are not going to do too well now that this situation has occurred. The Sixers might struggle a bit. They might be the best competition when it comes to the conference finals, but once again, I don't foresee them beating this team with all the parts considered. So yeah, it's going to be very tough in the East now. And then as far as the West, however, I say that there's a shift right now, but then considering that the Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder have pretty much stockpiled draft picks, who knows, maybe power shifts back in a few years. Who knows? But overall, it's going to be kind of crazy to see what happens in that regard. Overall, a crazy situation. Now, I'm a Mavs fan. So I always like to bring up my Mavs into this situation, because I've heard from a lot of sources that the Mavericks were very much interested in Victor Oladipo, and now this kind of puts a wrench into their free agency deal, because I mean the free agency class that was coming this next year was scheduled to be really huge, but then Giannis signed his big extension, and a lot of other players signed their extensions. Now we have Victor Oladipo being traded to the Houston Rockets. Does he sign an extension, or does he, renegotiate in the offseason, or does he just completely leave in free agency? Because if it's the third option, the Mavericks still have a chance to get at least a decent guard who's a decent ball handler, distributor, and defensive guard. But if that doesn't happen, now the Mavericks have delved further away from getting decent pieces to help Luka and Kristaps compete. I understand that's not the main focus on this video, but as a Mavericks fan, I kind of like to put things into perspective for that team. But overall, it really puts things into perspective for the league now. Once again, the main overarching theme, there's no longer any parity again. We're going to see a huge shift in power. And yeah, I have a feeling the Nets are going to be the NBA champions in 2021. So that's really all I had to say for this. And you let me know what you all think in the comment section. So, suscríbete a mi canal y hasta el próximo, mi gente. Adiós.